Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and we are all in for an incredible treat in today's episode because we are joined not only by a fellow leader and business executive, but really an executive that brings such a wealth of experience from so many different industries. And I think it is incredible the way that she combines that all into her role as CEO of a very incredible company, pushing the envelope in ways that really she's helping to pave the path of the future in the crypto world when it comes to mining, when it comes to corporate finance. So much good stuff that she's up to, and she's going to lend so much expertise. So let me introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Jolie Kahn. Jolie brings extensive experience in cryptocurrency, corporate finance, and securities law to her role as the CEO of AVAX One. She previously served as general counsel to one of the largest public Bitcoin mining companies and provided counsel to various cryptocurrency-based public entities. She has extensive expertise in corporate finance filings, audits, complex financings, M&A, and public company representation. Kahn holds a bachelor's from Cornell University and a JD. She graduated magna cum laude, so being from Boston, I can say that she's wicked smart, from Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law. And you're really going to see that Jolie's leadership style is incredible because whether we're diving into law, whether we're talking into leadership or the actual subject matter expertise of her company in the crypto space, she can get as technical or as clear communication as possible. Jolie is so talented in so many ways, so we're going to learn a lot from her. Let's dive straight into my interview with Jolie Kahn. All right, Jolie, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me this afternoon.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're with us, and I'm so grateful for you. I know how busy you are, but I will say I am so impressed at your background leading up to all the things that you do. Obviously, now you have a very important role as the CEO of AVAX One, and I know that you've recently gone through a rebrand. But Jolie, a lot of people are going to look at your background and say, gosh, how have you amassed all this expertise? How's it culminated into your one position as CEO? Give us that backstory of what got you here.
Well, there's a theme that runs throughout all of it, and that's that I really enjoy being an entrepreneur, which is why I'm really excited to be on your podcast, by the way. So throughout my career, I have been focused on corporate finance, both from the legal and the business side. And the interesting thing about that is that they're not mutually exclusive. So I started out my career in big law in New York, really in the 90s when all the cutting edge, the internet was first coming into play. And that is a great backdrop to the story of crypto. It was the first time the world became small enough that you could access it from your desktop. And that was really the big game changer. From there, we've gotten more efficient. The technology has gotten greater, and especially in the fintech space. So what I love about this is that we can take traditional finance concepts, traditional legal concepts, regulating finance, and it keeps on changing as we grow and as the world grows, both in terms of size, but also accessibility. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to tell everybody about AVAX One and our story and how one goes from being an entrepreneur and wanting to be in the space and really becoming a thought leader.
Yes, I so appreciate that overview, Jolie, especially because it is really cool hearing these threads that have weaved all throughout your career. And when we talk about AVAX One, I mean, I think it's incredible the scale at which you and your team operate. You're obviously listed on the NASDAQ. You have so many incredible things going, as I hinted a little bit towards the fact that you've gone through a rebrand towards the tail end of 2025. So, Jolie, for listeners who aren't yet familiar with AVAX One, bring it to us because I've seen you speak on public panels and I know how brilliant you are. You can make it as technical as you want, but give us that high-level overview of AVAX One.
Well, the high-level overview is that last year, lots of companies got on the bandwagon, of really being involved with what we call digital asset strategies. Basically, finding a cryptocurrency that you really believe in, accumulating that asset and watching it grow. So that was really the thesis behind strategy and what Michael Saylor did with Bitcoin several years ago. So last year, I had been asked by the board of directors to take over a company that I had taken public several years before and really look around and find something to do with that vehicle. So we started looking at these digital asset strategies, or as they're known in the vernacular, DATs, and really looking at, could we find one where we could grow beyond just hodling an asset and waiting for it to appreciate in value. We looked at several. We looked at some of the more, if you could call them traditional, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but we wanted something new and cutting edge and something where we felt we could add a lot of value. Came across HiveMind, which is a very well-known company basically in the crypto space. They've done a lot of investment. They've set up funds. Really, really lucky to be working with them and their chairman, Matt Jang, who's amazing. So we looked at what they had, looked at HiveMind. Then we looked at Avalanche, which is the cryptocurrency that they wanted to support through a DAT and a public company. And there were a lot of really neat things about Avalanche. First of all, it comes from my alma mater, Cornell, so I had to give it a little extra look, of course. But more seriously, it is lower cost to run. The blockchain and the technology behind it, it's more efficient and lower energy than something like Ethereum or Solana. So that was attractive to us. They also have this really cool built-in concept of what's called an Avalanche L1, which is analogous to a sidechain on Bitcoin, sort of. You can go in, you can have your own private use of the blockchain within the Avalanche ecosystem, which is really good. It lends a lot of security, which of course is really important in this day and age. So we were really psyched about that. Another cool thing about Avalanche is that you can stake the coins, which means you can earn revenue from holding the coins. It's now somewhere, the net is running somewhere around 6%. So that was also cool because we could hold the coins and generate cash flow. Of course, as a public company, that's really important to us. And there are also lots of neat applications that one can develop with the use of the Avalanche blockchain. It lends itself where there are a lot of transactions. You need speed, you need efficiency, and you also need to be able to do so at a lower transaction cost. So for instance, in the payment space, a company called Balcony back last summer digitized all of the real estate deeds in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is a very, very large suburban area right outside of New York City. And they've been able to do all sorts of things with it. You can create your own coins with title insurance. You can do all sorts of really cool things with it. So we looked at it. We really liked Avalanche for the reasons I stated. We closed a private placement of over $200 million in November, and we used most of that to buy the underlying asset. We're now in a stage right now, of course, with what's happened with crypto in general and the stock market in the last couple of months, conserving from cash just in case we need it, and also because we believe so much in Avalanche that we are looking to onboard some companies and technologies that would benefit from working on the Avalanche blockchain. As I said, anything in the payment space, a lot of fintech, and also things like the prediction markets work very well in Avalanche, although that's a newer set of applications.
Jolie, hearing the way you talk about these things, two business concepts really come to my mind. And obviously, I love entrepreneurship. It's why we're on the airwaves. And I'm so grateful for your deep love for entrepreneurship as well. And those two things that come to mind, the first of which is, I always botch this quote, but it's something along the lines of, for those people who are wondering what the future is going to look like, you can simply be the one that creates the future. And it seems to me like you're really pushing the envelope in that way. And that leads me to the second point, which is something that I really appreciate appreciate about the way that all of you are operating behind the scenes at AVAX One is that it comes back to my education as an economics and finance major, which is that age-old quote of don't try to time the market. It's all about time in the market, not about timing the market. And I think it's so brilliant that you brought up some of those macro considerations, and everybody right now is trying to figure out what does the rest of 2026 look like for all of us. You are uniquely situated, not only because you're in a very innovative market at a company that's doing innovative things. Not only are you a publicly listed company, but Jolie, you are also a thought leader in so many different ways. I think a lot of people are probably going to be surprised seeing the depth at which you can talk about anything and everything in the crypto world, in the legal world, in the public markets world, of course, on the business front. So with all of that in mind, where does your executive mind go when it comes to timing and those macroeconomic conditions? Because it seems to me from the outside looking in that you guys just continue to push the envelope in new ways, knowing long-term time in the market is always going to beat that timing the market.
Well, there used to be a concept years ago when I started my career of how do you make yourself recession-proof? So what do you do when there are adverse conditions? How do you go ahead and still have a successful company? And that is always something that's in my mind. Trends and bright shiny objects are wonderful, but at the end of the day, you need to have staying power. And that's a traditional concept, but we're looking to implement it in new ways. So taking the DAC concept and supporting it with finding cash flow businesses that we can actually put on the blockchain, things like that are super important. I also think it's also super important to look at credibility. The discipline that one has in TradFi and traditional financial markets needs to be adopted in some of the newer markets in crypto. And I'm part of my job is also to make sure that that happens. I'm proud to be a member of the advisory board to the Avalanche Policy Council, which is a council supported by the Avalanche Foundation and Ava Labs, which is the company that really brought Avalanche into commercialization. We have formed this council with an advisory board that looks at what's going on in Washington and in London and in, the EC and everywhere else to regulate crypto. We don't believe in regulating crypto to the extent that it can't be used in a free market concept. What we do want to do is normalize crypto. We want to make it something that's available to the average person. And we also want to do it in a way where there's really, really strong transparency and regulation in terms of that transparency, but also regulation that still makes it possible to operate a business. So we're looking at all those kind of concepts, and those things will help for the long term. And I think they're super important at the get-go to really get in there. We have the Genius Act, we have the Clarity Act in the US, and really looking at what we can do, especially with the changes over in the SEC and going to a more market-friendly regulator. And really, what do we do? We're also a public company. We need to protect our shareholders. We have fiduciary duties. So what do we do? It's a fine line between regulation, which enables us to operate a business but still protects the average person and protects our shareholders, versus putting in regulation that's so cumbersome that it makes it impossible to operate a business. So I'm really pleased and honored to be part of those groups, because I want to make sure that as we move forward, there's a level playing field, and at the same time, it's in a business-friendly environment.
Yeah, Jolie, as a business owner, I really appreciate that answer that you just shared with us, because I feel like the why is so clearly underlying in your stance on all of these things. And you and I are both business leaders in our own rights. And with that in mind, you and I both know it's actually crazy to say out loud what I'm about to say, is that how difficult in 2026 sometimes it is to do business. I mean, sure, there are some really great payment processors. We've seen some great payment processors evolve over time time. I remember when I started my first business, it's pretty much just PayPal, and that was the only way for me to accept money online. That has obviously changed, but Jolie, I feel like societally, definitely within the business world, we are waiting, we are hoping for, you said it, the free market to make all of these things easier, to lower that barrier of entry for so many people. That accessibility is key. What do you see as those stumbling blocks right now? Is this a business ecosystem problem? Is this a societal problem? Is it up to that governmental level? What's going to get us to that version of the future that you all are working so hard to bring us into?
Well, there's one word that comes to mind that we have to protect everybody from, and that's fraud. All of the OFAC, all of the foreign asset control, all of the money laundering statutes, we need those in place to protect us from cartels and everything else. But we need to be able to figure out how to differentiate between regulation that protects us from illegal money laundering and the like, but does not keep the average person and put up such barriers that it's impossible for the average person to operate in the business world. And that's what we're still figuring out. And one of the nice things about the Avalanche network is that because of these L1 Avalanche chains, we can put up different kinds of, really intelligent AI and other mechanisms that are really good at ferreting out illicit activity without creating undue burdens on the average person who wants to operate and try to run a business in, let's say, Latin America, where they may want to have the ability to transfer assets if they've got a currency that's not as stable as the US dollar, and really transfer assets into USD and then back into local currencies. And a lot of times there need to be protocols to be able to do that while still making sure that there's no money laundering going on.
Jolie, I always try so hard to not bring AI into every conversation that we have on the air, but inevitably it makes its way in. And I believe that AI is bringing us to a very beautiful version of the future. Of course, there's considerations, just like you're bringing up that there's considerations for the cryptocurrency world as well. There's also the same considerations in the realm of AI, but I think it's cool because you're at the intersection of so many of these things. How's AI factoring into all of this? You talked about the risk assessment that it can do in real time, which for us as consumers that are doing good things in the world, ideally it makes our lives easy. What's that broader take on the way that AI plays into and factors into all this? And sorry, I'm going to layer all this into one big question for you because I know you can take it, is that what is your confidence level that AI is going to accelerate the mass adoption of crypto, of blockchain technology, of all the really cool and innovative things that we know are out there, but still haven't gotten into the mainstream just yet?
Well, part of the problem is how we communicate about AI to the public, right? So there are some people I've heard lately who've been analogizing AI to a George Orwellian 1984 animal world dystopia. And that's just not what it is, right? It's not going to go spy on everybody and tell your deepest and darkest secrets to the rest of the world and all of that. It's a data manipulation tool when we come down to it. And again, I'm not a software engineer or an expert in that area, but to simplify it, and from what I understand, it really is a data manipulation tool. It's very smart data manipulation. So if we can build into that the protections we need and keep it narrowly focused on the jobs we need done, I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for the future. But I also feel, as with many other novel concepts, there needs to be education to the average consumer, and not just, oh, AI is the greatest thing and it can write whatever you want and do whatever you want. We really need to explain what the utilities are, and also make sure that while we use it as a tool, it doesn't replace human ingenuity and human analysis, which of course are the utmost importance.
Yeah, Jolie, I so appreciate that. And you know what? I have a big smile on my face because it's such a treat having you on the air. And I'm just going to directly call out why I so appreciate this conversation today. And it's because CEOs, business leaders, entrepreneurs, we take all different shapes and sizes. And what I find so fascinating about all your answers here today, no matter what topic we go into, is that we really see your balance. It seems to me that part of your executive leadership style is the fact that you really have that balance. You consider both sides of that equation. I would imagine that being an attorney gives you part of that balance. But Jolie, talk to us about your executive leadership style, because you've helped AVAX One navigate through a rebrand. You are helping to navigate into what the future looks like. I want to put the spotlight on you as CEO, though. How would you describe your leadership style? Because you also have that other element of it's a publicly listed company. You have shareholders as well. So Jolie, I know how busy you are. What does the leadership hat look like in your world?
The one word that I would use if I had to pick one word, and you didn't ask me to, but I'll give you one word anyway, and that is a collaborative style. No one can be an effective leader unless you listen to your constituents. So I listen to my management team, I listen to our advisors, and most importantly, I listen to our shareholders. Because at the end of the day, we are here to create value for our shareholders. And let's make no mistake about it, that's why public companies exist. I do this through listening. I do this through a lot of transparency. And I also do it through taking advantage of my experience in different facets, as you described, to really look at everything, try to integrate it, and also analyze the data, analyze the different options to us. And, I try to thread the needle the best that I can. You can talk to 10 people and get 10 different answers. And then you really need to look at it and decide what are the 3 or 4 that really make sense and how do you integrate them. And that's really my leadership style. No person is an island. We really all need to listen to one another. And the more we listen and the more we rely on collective wisdom, the better off we are.
Yeah, which leads to, of course, I know that you're giving me a very humble answer, Jolie, but I'm going to keep pushing you because I think that there's such a strength there of the fact that you have that executive filter. And we all seek, and sometimes unsolicited, we all hear advice and opinions of others around us. That's why I love that Teddy Roosevelt quote about it's not the critic who counts, it's the man in the arena. And you are very much in the arena, Jolie. And so with all of that in mind, when you solicit all of this feedback and all the unsolicited feedback, what does that executive filter look like? Is this time that you sit back alone and you carve out to look at things on a micro level and a macro level? Is it a trusted counsel? I would imagine your leadership team has a lot of say in those things, but ultimately, what's that executive filter look like?
Well, growing up as an only child in New York in the go-go 80s, as we call them, and really coming of age with the first generation of women who were widely accepted in leadership roles. All of a sudden, I wasn't the only one in the law firm. I wasn't the only one female in the law school. It was really the first time when you saw 50-50 pretty much enrollment in law schools and everything else. I felt free. I felt free to innovate. I felt free to push boundaries, and I felt free to take a seat at the table and really speak up. I was also encouraged to do that. I was brought up mostly by my mom and my grandmother, who were both, really pioneers. In my grandmother during the Great Depression brought up her 2 daughters on her own. So really that's sort of the history from my family. And I only bring that up because I'm really proud of it. And really taking that and pushing the envelope and really sitting there and saying, okay, I have the seat at the table. I've had a lot of advantages. What am I going to do with it? And anybody who knows me knows that I can be outspoken. And if I have strong opinions, I'll voice them. That doesn't mean I won't listen to other people if someone tells me we disagree and here's why. And that's all wonderful. But if you can't get out there and have the confidence to really believe in what you're promoting and really get out there and not sell it in a marketing way, but be able to really advocate and convince people, which is why I'm so grateful for my legal background. That I feel is the best way for me to be successful is communication and consistent communication and being, the squeaky wheel in the room, more often than I'll admit.
That's those New York roots helping out there. So I love for
that
sure.
too.
I love the shout out to your mother and your grandmother, because that is important. And for me, especially, you and I talked a little bit off the air about, I'm also from the Northeast, and my mom's family, having an immigrant family coming through the United States, and my mom growing up in the Bronx. You're right. It does take a bit of that grit. So I really appreciate how much your family influence still to this very day is a big part of who you are and how you lead and how you operate. I've got to squeeze this question in there because, again, sticking to the executive filter and with that CEO hat on, there are probably so many different metrics that are begging for your attention on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Jolie, where do your eyes go when it comes to looking at those leading indicators, those lagging indicators? What sort of metrics come across your desk on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
Well, the good thing and the bad thing is that, we're a small company at current. So I have a very lean staff, and I have staff of people both interior to the company and also some very trusted and good consultants that I'm very privileged to have working with me. And I look at metrics. Obviously, we have a stock price. Obviously, we're a DAT, so we have MNAV. So I look at the numerical metrics on a daily basis because I have to. That's what's asked of me, and that's, numbers don't lie. Numbers are numbers, right? And then I look beyond that. What's the productivity of my team? Where are areas where I feel we need more support or we need more data or whatever it may be, and how do I plug those? And really looking at the metrics, both the published ones, we have our dashboard is on our website. I look at that several times a day, but also in my mind, really assessing and being able to change objectives when we need to. But what do I need to do? What do I need to get my team to do for us to be able to translate into those objective numerical goals that we need to meet?
Yes, I love that. We often hear about data, but seeing that you practice what you preach, that dashboard publicly visible on the website, it's really cool for everybody to tap into that. And then hearing how that helps to shape your day to day, even multiple times a day, you're checking the numbers, and you called it out right there. The numbers don't lie. And I think that as business owners and as executives, sometimes we don't want to see those, but that should be lighting a fire under us to say, no, this is the direction we need to go. Now let's figure out how to make it happen. And I think it's much easier once you have that truth, once you have that starting line to know where you are and where you need to go. So Jolie, you have been such a wealth of knowledge in so many different ways, but I want to put you on the spot one last time because I ask this question at the end of every episode. All right. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journey, and knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing you want to leave them with today?
Well, it's a combined concept. It is have confidence in what you believe, have confidence in yourself, but at the same time, do not ignore the warning signs. So it's thoughtful confidence is the best way that I can describe it.
Ooh, I love that. And I feel, again, there's that legal background of the scale is equal on both sides. I feel like that's been prevalent so much in our conversation today. And as someone who did a ton of research into you and your work, not only with what you're doing with AVAX One, but even leading up to that, it's such a clear theme through everyone that has had the chance to interact with you throughout your career. So, Jolie, I'm so grateful for your insights in today's conversation. I also know that listeners are going to be so excited to see all the ways that AVAX One is pushing the envelope. So for listeners who want to follow along and all the cool stuff that you're up to, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
The best place to go is to our website, which is www.avax, that's the dash symbol 1, ONE.com. You can see our regular website. There's a link there to go to our investor relation website, which also contains all of our public filings and press releases and videos and all of that. So that's the best place to go. And of course, always, reach out. There's a way to submit comments to us, and someone from our team will address any questions, concerns you have.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find that link down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. Super easy to remember. AVAX 1 is AVAX-1. That's one spelled out, O-N-E, but you don't have to memorize that if you're driving, if you're at the gym listening to us. Just click right on through from the links in the show notes. Otherwise, Jolie, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.